Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Well, as if on cue, right as we come on the air here for the Joe Kelley Show, the storm is really ramping up. We've got a couple of areas of severe thunderstorms in Central Florida, right here in our immediate backyard. These are the outer bands of Hurricane Idalia, which, by the way, has just been upgraded from the National Hurricane Center to a Category 2 hurricane. I could go on, but I would rather loop a real professional to talk about Hurricane Idalia, and that is Channel 9 Eyewitness News meteorologist George Waldenberger. George, as I said, we just got the word that it's a Cat 2, and we do have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings right here in Central Florida.
Yeah, we do. And those two strongest storms are right now, one in Osceola County. So if you're in Point Siena or in the Lake Toho area south of Kissimmee, that's where that thunderstorm is. So this will have the potential, this storm, as it moves toward Kissimmee, okay, and Campbell, and eventually towards Meadowwoods in South Orlando, the potential for a little bit of damage here. So we're going to watch that track to the north. These storms, Joe, are moving about 40 miles, 45 miles per hour on their own. So it's really not hard for them to kick up winds a little bit stronger, approaching 60 miles per hour, which is roughly the limit of a severe thunderstorm, the lower limit. So that's one warning. And then the other warning is a severe thunderstorm that's tracking through Brevard County. It's on the west side of Palm Bay. This is moving into West Melbourne, and headed toward Vieira and Rockledge as we speak. Again, fast-moving storms. These also, Joe, have a lot of lightning with them. As the center of Idalia gets a little closer, I anticipate we'll see a little less lightning, but we're still far enough away that these are lightning-intense storms. The third one is moving through Wedgefield and Bithlo. This will be headed toward Geneva and Chuliota. That's not severe yet. We'll see if we get a warning on that. And then the one final storm, Lake Panasoffkee. This is in Sumter County. This might clip the west neighborhoods of the villages. Also not a warning with this, but this is just an example of the thunderstorms. There are so many of them that comprise the hurricane and the outer reaches of the hurricane that, it's a big complex of thunderstorms.
And George, as I said, and as you've alluded, I mean, the rain and storms that we're getting right now are the outer bands of Hurricane Idalia, but it is still pretty far south and pretty far out into the Gulf of Mexico. It is not exactly hugging the coastline, at least not the eye of the storm at this hour, and we still have quite a ways to go before it makes landfall.
Yeah, so about 260 miles to the southwest of us, that's where the eye of Idalia is. And right now on my computer here, I'm actually looking at radar. We can get a really good picture of the eye, both using the radar from Tampa and Key West. And it's a very circular-shaped eye. So very well-defined storm Idalia is as it strengthens now to a Category 2. It's still well off the coast, too, of off, say, Naples. It's about due west of Naples. I'd say it's about 175 miles west of Naples. And so we've already had tornado warnings down there. So in this far outer squall that's been moving through, and it is really just with strong thunderstorms there. And the main core of Idalia still, we're waiting for it to brush the west coast and then kind of clip us to the northwest overnight into tomorrow morning.
Do we have a sense, George Waldenberger, for where it is going to make landfall and at what time? I know that those are the two $1 million questions. So we've got $2 million on the line here, but where is it going to make landfall and at what time?
So earlier we were eyeing Cedar Key. Now, each progressive forecast track update, at least over today, they've been to the west. So we're kind of looking at a trend probably towards Steinhatchee and maybe even farther west of Steinhatchee over toward the Big Bend area. And I'm thinking again tomorrow, maybe after 8 a.m., around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning for a landfall up there. So that keeps it, again, well to the northwest, at least the center of the strongest winds to the northwest of us. But in that whole, you know how it's kind of like an armpit shape up there.
Yeah.
In that all of the waves can be kind of focused to one small area. And that's going to be the problem, because that storm surge, all of that water being directed up toward that corner, may now have the potential to rise 10 to 15 feet in some spots. So there's a lot of small communities up there that we're really watching out for.
And while we're often, very keen on where it makes landfall, for those of us here in Central Florida, the landfall timing and location may not be as relevant because, well, it's not going to be here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And also a further example of how when we see the cone, that is not telling us where the impacts of the hurricane are. That is just showing us where the center is expected to track. Impacts fall well outside the cone, especially on the east side of the cone, which, Joe, we are on the east side of the cone, and one of those impacts that typically falls well outside the east side of the cone is that heavy rain and flooding threat. So we'll be monitoring that, as well as our tornado threat into the evening, overnight, and through tomorrow as well.
And as we look a little bit further into the future, George Waldenberger, this storm is expected to transverse across the peninsula, move across the state of Florida and out into the Atlantic.
Yes. I think I know where you're going with this.
Well,
yeah.
there's already another hurricane in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And we've seen this before, that a storm could potentially, and I saw the spaghetti models, and I think only one of the models showed this, but it shows that it could hook back around and hit Florida again.
Yeah. Again, that is looking pretty far out in the future, and I've seen that too. The GFS American model has done this with a couple runs in a weakened state. What's left of Idalia coming back around. I'm not putting too much stock in that yet. What I do want to watch actually after we see Idalia pass, and in those days that follow, think about it. Idalia will pass over Jacksonville and then move back over water. That would put us back in the northeast winds, okay? And so our beaches in Volusia County and Flagler County, they'll be subject to a northeast wind. So at that point, we need to watch those areas for some coastal erosion. And it could take a couple days after Idalia's passing. And we know from Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Nicole, that we don't need any more erosion, especially on our Volusia County beaches, but also in Flagler County beaches.
Now, lastly, for you, George Waldenberger, assume for a moment that somebody is listening to radio for the first time. They just moved to Florida. They've never experienced, even at this distance, a hurricane of any type. What is the message for newbies, our new Florida residents tonight, and whether or not they need to stay up all night or if they can, safely go to bed? And, what is our level of concern we should have throughout the night tonight?
Yeah, excellent question. So maybe you moved here from an up north place. I always try to tell people who have never been through a hurricane, think of a tornado event, and most people have been through severe weather events with tornadoes, but on the scale of a large winter storm or a blizzard. In other words, something that lasts a couple days. And so we can have severe weather either this afternoon, this evening, overnight, tomorrow morning. We have to be ready for a tornado warning or a flood warning at any point in that time range. So if you're going to bed tonight, just realize we will be covering this wall to wall. If you wake up and if you hear the winds and the rain and you start thinking, oh my, what's going on here? Just turn on the TV on Channel 9. We'll be covering this, and I know you will be at WDBO covering this as well. If we're wall to wall, I think you will usually either have your DJs take our feed or you will use our feed, and you guys will be wall to wall as well. So if anything is going on, you'll be able to get the exact information right away from us, and then also be ready to act if a tornado warning is issued. Just know where that safe place is. You could need it at any point, really, through the end of the day tomorrow.
Well, I can let you know the answer to that right now, and that is as we get later into the night, we will be simulcasting Channel 9 Eyewitness News. So if you guys are going to be with us all night, then either you watch Channel 9 or you listen to WDBO. Either way, you're going to be able to hear George Waldenberger and Cassandra Crimmy and, of course, Tom Terry throughout the night tonight, as they'll provide continuous updates on Hurricane Idalia. George Waldenberger, Channel 9 Eyewitness News meteorologist. George, I know you got a busy night ahead.
Yes, it's always a pleasure, though.
Thank
Check
you.
back in. We'll try and keep you ahead of this All right. Good
You got
work.
it. Thank you very much, George Waldenberger, and we'll continue to keep you updated. We do have the live radar. If you want to check it out on the WDBO Facebook page as part of our Facebook chat group, we do have the live radar up, and you can see the storm as it continues to make its way. And as I said to George, I was a little surprised to look to see that this storm is as far offshore as it is and as far south as it is. As he said, it's down near Naples. I mean, this is 120 miles or so. The eye of the storm, at least, is about 120 miles west of Naples. So it's way down south still. It is not moving very quickly across the Gulf of Mexico, which honestly might bode poorly for the state. I don't think it's going to bode poorly for us here in Central Florida, but it might bode poorly for the state in that if it's slowly moving across the Gulf of Mexico, that is warm water. And as we discussed last night, warm water feeds energy, whereas cold water robs it of energy. And the perfect comparison of that is Hurricane Hillary, which we recently saw in the Pacific Ocean as it was down by the Baja Peninsula of Mexico. It was a full-on hurricane, but as it made its way a little further north in the Pacific towards California, it quickly lost energy because the Pacific Ocean, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Pacific Ocean is very, very cold, unlike the Atlantic Ocean around Florida, and certainly unlike the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is our warmest body of water that touches the United States. The Atlantic is going to be the second warmest, especially along the coast of Florida. You get a little further up north, and it is quite brisk and chilly. The water is, but you get out to the Pacific Ocean in California, and when you see, I don't know why this comes to mind, but if you recall Baywatch, when they used to film Baywatch out there, the actors would always tell you that they had to make it look like it was nice and warm as they were in the water, but it wasn't. That water is incredibly cold in the Pacific, and that is why Hurricane Hillary quickly lost energy, lost power, and was barely a tropical storm when it made landfall in Southern California. This, though, is going to be quite a bit different as the water in the Gulf of Mexico is rather warm. It has been even warmer as of lately in the last month or so. It has been unseasonably and record books. It has been record heat in the Gulf of Mexico. So as of right now, the maximum sustained winds in the hurricane are 100 miles an hour, but that is out in the Gulf of Mexico. One of the concerns out in the Gulf of Mexico is going to be the oil platforms that they have out there. I would imagine that any that are in the path of Hurricane Idalia have already been evacuated, but just because there aren't people on them doesn't mean it won't cause damage. At least we won't have a loss of life when they evacuate, but we could certainly see even higher gas prices than what we're already paying if this hurricane does any damage to the oil platforms that are in the Gulf of Mexico, and if it takes the oil companies too long to get those oil platforms back online. My name is Joe Kelley. If you have any questions, comments, observations, you can call 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can also use the open mic in the WDBO app. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to check in with Duke Energy and get the latest from them. We are expecting the latest update from Governor DeSantis at 5:45 p.m. We will continue to bring you the latest on what is now a Category 2 Hurricane Idalia here on WDBO.
Red alert from the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center.
Well, we've got an extreme weather alert. Why not have a red alert for traffic in there as well? In Osceola County, a multi-vehicle crash at mile marker 241. That's just before Kissimmee Park Road. Everything on the right shoulder, but this also includes a big rig, and your delays start at the 417. That's a 10-mile backup heading south through Osceola County. This report sponsored by HCA Florida Healthcare. Sharp stomach pain, advice is here. Consultant nurse answers, advice around the clock. Consultant nurse, HCA Florida Healthcare, they show up for you. Call 844-706-8773. It's free. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
It's the gentle ocean breeze that sweeps you off your feet. The 99 holes of championship golf that offer endless possibilities. The small town southern charm that embraces you everywhere you go. From the beaches in the east to the marshes in the west, there's a special feeling you get on Amelia Island. It's a real thing. It's an island thing. Make it your thing. Start planning your Northeast Florida beach escape now at AmeliaIsland.com.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
Joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. This is a special edition, obviously, of the Joe Kelley Show as we are watching Hurricane Idalia. And I know it's spelled Idalia with an I, and it's an I storm, but it is pronounced Idalia, and I keep having to remind myself of that and catch myself saying it. I keep finding myself saying it the wrong way. But it is Idalia. If you're just joining us here, we've got all the stories that you missed while you were at work today. The Washington Post had the story 9 hours ago that 3M, the big manufacturing giant 3M, is going to pay $6 billion to settle a hearing loss lawsuits filed over military earplugs. It's one of the largest mass torts in U.S. history. What is a real shame about this is, and as is so often the case in these big class action lawsuits, is the lawyers are going to get extraordinarily wealthy from this settlement, and the victims will get chump change, no doubt, from the settlement. But if you suffered hearing loss in the U.S. military, and I know a lot of people that have suffered hearing loss in the U.S. military, but if you used a particular hearing aid earplugs that were supplied by 3M, you might get in on some of this largesse of the $6 billion. You might get $5 or $6 out of the $6 billion, but the attorneys are going to make an absolute boatload of money. 9 hours ago, the Wall Street Journal reported that the United States has named the first 10 drugs that are going to be subject to Medicare price negotiations. The list includes some of the most widely used medicines in America. If you're on a chronic medication for chronic illnesses like high blood pressure and diabetes, those are going to be some of the medicines that are going to be discounted. 7 hours ago, CNN reported that the suspect arrested on the murder charge of the fatal shooting at the University of North Carolina faculty member is a doctoral student at the school. 6 hours ago, CNN reported that the number of U.S. job openings fell for the third consecutive month, dropping below 9 million for the first time since March 2021. Bad news today for GOP congressional leader Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise has been diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer. It's a very treatable form of blood cancer, but he says he's not been feeling well for the past week or so. He got checked out and was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. You might recall that the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is also the same guy that got shot multiple times on a baseball field a couple years ago by a radical Bernie Sanders supporter. He took multiple rounds. Steve Scalise did. 4 hours ago, CNN broke the news that Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, the only major Hispanic presidential candidate for 2024, has dropped out of the Republican primary. You were probably unaware that Francis Suarez was even in the Republican primary. He's not now. 2 hours ago, Fox News reported that a Bachelorette contestant is alive and well after a post detailing a sudden passing. In other news, the Bachelorette is evidently still on TV. 3 hours ago, the Washington, D.C. Zoo had temporarily closed due to a bomb threat. Who calls in a bomb threat at a zoo anyway? And then 16 minutes ago, CNN reported, as did WDBO, that Hurricane Idalia strengthens to a Category 2 as it begins to lash Florida ahead of a potentially catastrophic landfall on the state's west coast. I know for those of us here in Central Florida, you can breathe easy a bit. I would never let your guard down completely, but we can breathe easy a little bit as this storm is hopefully going to pass us by with just some pretty heavy rain that we're going to be dealing with overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. But otherwise, the bulk of the storm, the bulk of the flooding, the bulk of the storm surge is going to be hitting up in the Big Bend area. That is where the state of Florida turns from a peninsula into the Panhandle. That's the area that is that where the storm appears to be drawing a bead on that area right there. Coming up, we will hear from a representative of Duke Energy. That's going to be coming up in our next segment. And then Governor DeSantis is expected to brief us on Hurricane Idalia coming up at 5:45. Stay right here.
Red alert from the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center.
Well, the good news is that crash that we had in Osceola County, mile marker 241, that's just before Kissimmee Park Road. They were gathered there all on the right shoulder. A big rig has just taken off. A larger truck has just taken off. Then we had a police vehicle taken off. So now we only have one vehicle on the right side, but traffic is still an absolute mess. 10 miles of brake lights starting around 417. Now, to just not get into too much detail, if you're on the roadways, you are experiencing some slowdowns. I-4, everything below 528 especially, which includes I-4, 417, 192, John Young, OBT, a whole lot more. Very, very slow and very wet right now, so just use caution. This report sponsored by Wendy's. Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave's single spicy chicken sandwich, 10-piece nugs or medium frosty. Get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
We are expecting an update from Governor DeSantis. That is going to be coming up at about 5:45. I will hand it to Governor DeSantis, at least with regards to these weather updates, the Idalia updates. He is usually right on time, so we're expecting that at 5:45 p.m. You'll be able to hear that live here on WDBO. By the way, just in the nick of time, they finally got all the scaffolding down at that building in downtown Orlando on the corner of Church Street and Orange Avenue. All the scaffolding is down, and all those roads are now back open again. That just happened late yesterday, early today, that they've opened up those roads again. Joining us now from Duke Energy is Ben Williamson. Hey, Ben, how are you? Hang on, I don't seem to have Ben.
Can you hear me?
Yep, Ben, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, Joe, good to be here. Thanks for having me. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, I know that you're going to have a long night, like many of us will, trying to make sure that the lights stay on for everybody.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. In my role, I'm not the real heroes. The heroes here are sitting. I'm staring at a few of them. I'm actually at one of our largest staging areas. It's the Village staging area. It's a little bit south of the Villages there, and we've got about 1,000 trucks, both Duke Energy trucks and contractors, ready to roll out in the morning as soon as it's safe to do so. So it's been a long day of folks coming in from all over the state, all over the Southeast, and we've had crews as far away as Indiana and Ohio have made their way here today to be ready to respond and help when needed.
I got to say, and I've seen this for years now, not only here in Florida, but I saw it in Oklahoma when they had tornadoes and blizzards and ice storms. But it is great how our America's power companies all have cooperative agreements to help with other states, because invariably it's usually one state at a time that has a massive disaster that requires a lot of work from talented, skilled linesmen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that partnership continues to be something that benefits communities, benefits customers. These guys, some of them are pulling out of the site right now. They're going to go home and they're going to get a few hours of rest, and then they're going to be working, very, very long days for quite some time. So, it's an awesome thing to see and witness, and proud to be a part of it.
And I know that this is one of those questions, Ben, that is probably better asked when it's sunny and nice outside. But invariably, I can hear my listeners' questions in their heads, and I know that listeners are asking, well, why do we have all of our power lines above ground on poles? Why don't we put them underground where hurricanes aren't going to knock them over?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, and what I can tell you is, again, Duke Energy, we've got some customers here in Florida. We've got, I believe it's 40 to 45% of our lines that are very, very susceptible. They are underground, and that's an evaluation that takes place, almost every day. We look at that, every storm we evaluate, and so we've got some critical lines that are underground. Obviously, not all of them, but that is something we do. We've got lines that are underground, and we continue to look at that and evaluate that every year if additional lines need to be moved underground.
We're talking to Ben Williamson from Duke Energy, and there's also, we learn this every hurricane season with drastic results. But we learn about the dangers of power generators, the consumer generators, and with that, if a homeowner wires that into their electrical panel, that can pose a major problem for the linemen who are trying to restore power to neighborhoods.
Yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out. If I get too long here, let me know. But you're exactly right. And we tell people that if there is a line down, no matter where it is, consider it live. And you are correct that can pose a threat. And so, we ask folks to be aware of that. As far as restoration efforts go, Duke Energy takes kind of a priority list approach. And the first thing they will do is we'll look for the, public safety, threats to public safety. So lines that are down that could be energized, that is the priority, number one. The next priority, we focus on those medical facilities, emergency response buildings, so think fire stations, police stations, hospitals. We then turn our focus to large infrastructure, so think those big transmission lines, substations, things that if we can get them fixed quickly can put the lights back on pretty quickly for folks. And then we focus on those, the transmission and distribution lines that go into the neighborhood. So, that's a long way to answer your question. Please be careful if you're using a generator. I'm sure there's all sorts of information, and I could share a bunch with you, but I won't, on how to, if you've got one of those, please make sure you're safe. But I also would ask folks for have their patience as we kind of work through that process whenever this storm passes through.
I'm always curious, Ben, again, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Ben Williamson from Duke Energy, and I'm always curious when power goes out. So if someone is sitting at home right now and in a half an hour from now their power goes out, which we are fully anticipating some people are going to lose power, if not here in Central Florida, up closer to the Panhandle and the Big Bend, up there, a lot of people could lose power. But when we know it is a full-on storm, and if a homeowner loses power, do they need to call and report their power out, or is it safe to assume that Duke Energy is well aware of the power outages?
So I would say that we learn from every single storm, and as we learn, we do different things, and we add technologies not only to our grid but to meters on folks' homes. So we're able to have a pretty good idea. I mean, our damage assessment teams will get to work right away, and they are excellent at identifying the areas that are the hardest hit. But I will tell you that we very much appreciate folks reporting outages, and they can do that multiple ways. Obviously, our customers, you can have the app. You have your app on your phone. That's the easiest thing to do. You open it up. You report an outage. Duke-energy.com outage alerts. You can go on and report it there. You can text out to 57801, and you can call a number. It's 1-800-228-8485. It's 1-800-228-8485. What that does is it gives our teams another data point to use when they're mapping out where to send our crews, where the priority areas are. So to answer your question, we certainly have a lot of technology and skill on our side to be able to identify those areas, but it's always a good thing to report those outages. And that helps provide another data point to our teams.
And Ben, I know a lot of times when the linemen finally get into some of the neighborhoods and communities, I know that a lot of grateful homeowners are quick to want to, make cookies or, to do something for the linemen. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? I know that, being courteous is nice, but they've got a job to do. And I don't know that it's best to even if we're out there thanking them, if we should just leave them be because they've got such important work to do.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. These our team members, their number one priority is safety, and I know that these folks are out there and they're obviously appreciated. But it is probably best to, when they're in the area and working, to stay very much clear of that area. These teams have extensive safety plans, and there are hazards present that the general public may not be aware of. So we would ask folks to stay clear of that. And to also understand, you're right. I mean, these are long days, and they work as quickly as possible, and they are on to the next area. I actually spoke to one today that's from the Midwest, and he said he's been doing this for, I think he said 22 years, and he still gets chills when he pulls in and sees all these folks coming around. And so they love what they do. And they are very appreciative for folks that are appreciative of them. But you are correct. We want to stay clear of their work areas, and they're going to be moving as quickly and safely as possible from one location to the next.
And lastly, on the other side of that, as you well know, there are some hostile people in our communities that might want to go out and confront linemen who are just trying to get the power turned on. The linemen aren't the people at the top making the big decisions. They're simply the hardworking, skilled workers who are, in a sense, putting their lives on the line to get the power restored. So don't even dare approach linemen to give them grief about your home power not being turned on.
Well, and it goes back to what I talked about as the priorities. We understand, we take the responsibility very seriously. We understand that a power outage, no matter how long it is, 5 minutes or longer, is an inconvenience. We certainly realize that. We work as quickly and as safely as possible. I kind of earlier talked about the priorities where we focus on, is there something causing a public safety threat? That's the first priority. Then we really got to focus on hospitals, health facilities, medical facilities, those emergency response, police, firefighters. Then we focus on the large infrastructure that can get the lights on for a lot of folks a lot quicker than working on individual lines. So we have to kind of work through that process. So just because you may not see a crew on your street or in your neighborhood, that certainly does not mean that we're not out very, very widely and working really hard. So I appreciate you making that comment. These folks love what they do. They're great people, and we would just ask for folks' patience. We've got unfortunately, we've got a lot of experience in storms like this. Ben
Williamson from Duke Energy. I know I said that was the last question. I have one more last short question for you, and then I'll let you go. I know that you're very, very busy tonight. But there is the possibility that as a tree limb falls and knocks a power line down, most of the newer houses do have the power lines underground, but some of our older houses have the power lines go to a rooftop conduit that goes into the house. If a tree branch falls on that and tears it out of the house, that then becomes the homeowner's problem to fix before the power company can get that electricity turned back on. Am I wrong about that?
I believe you are correct. I will be honest with you. I'd have to follow up with you and make sure and confirm. Because I don't want to. I believe you are correct, but don't hold me to that 100%. I can certainly find out and follow up with you, and you can share it with your viewers. But I believe you are correct.
All right, Ben Williamson from Duke Energy. Ben, thank you so much for your time. I know our listeners really, really appreciate you joining us here tonight. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everyone stay safe. Thanks so much.
You got it. My name is Joe Kelley. We'll continue this special edition of the Joe Kelley Show. Coming up straight ahead, we're now told that the governor's news conference has been moved to 6 p.m., so we'll monitor that at 6 p.m. for Governor DeSantis' latest news conference.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
Well, we are monitoring what is now a Category 2 Hurricane Idalia that is in the Gulf of Mexico, the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. We do have a number of traffic problems. We'll check in with Paul Cross coming up in a few minutes. But, of course, we are hyper-focused tonight on both the hurricane and the related traffic from that, and any potential severe weather we're going to have here in the Central Florida area. At this moment, we have turned off our storm center tones. We don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings that are active in Central Florida at this hour, so we're looking pretty good. We do have some pretty heavy rain that is falling around Mims, out to Oviedo, out towards the Executive Airport, into Altamont Springs, and Christmas and Wedgeland, way out in far, far east Orange County. That is about the heaviest rain that we're experiencing right now. For the rest of us, we're getting some kind of light rain, but we do expect that to as more and more bands of Hurricane Idalia make its way onshore. We will certainly see more of that here in the Orlando area. My name is Joe Kelley. We expect to hear from Governor DeSantis in just a couple of minutes. You will hear that live here on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Well, I-4 moving pretty well at a decent pace here through downtown. If you look at the Facebook feed, then we're showing downtown right now, I-4 westbound and eastbound looking okay. 417 northbound at the exit for 441, though. You got an object in the roadway with the right lane blocked. And, of course, that heavy traffic continues on the turnpike just south of the 417 if you're traveling southbound down to mile marker 241. We had an earlier multi-vehicle wreck there. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service for honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction. Call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit ProTechAC.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. This is a special edition of WDBO Tracking Idalia.
I'm Joe Kelley. You're listening to the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. I want to tune in now as Channel 9 Eyewitness News meteorologist Tom Terry is breaking down the storm here on Channel 9 and, of course, here on WDBO.
You can see it just brushing the coast here, Tampa, Sarasota, and by 2:30 in the morning, we're going to be on tornado watch. We are now all the way till it moves out, but especially overnight along these outer rain bands, Sumter, parts of western Orange County. Make sure you have our free weather app, get the weather radio, take your silence off, so if we send an alert out, you'll be able to wake up and tune in and watch us here. This is a major hurricane by 5:30 approaching just on the southeast side of Tallahassee. So they're going to get into the western side of this, slightly weaker, but still this is going to be a big storm moving through the Gainesville area, parts of Marion County. And also look at this, 8:45, we have a big squall line coming right up the heart of the I-4 corridor. So if you don't have to get out tomorrow, stay right where you are, hunkered down, watching all of our coverage here. By noon, the storm finally starts to move into Georgia. But, folks, we're going to be in the trailing edge of all of this through most of the day tomorrow. 7-day forecast, weekend always in view. Still a relatively high rain coverage through Friday. So there's going to be a front nearby helping to push this out. And then a nice upcoming holiday weekend. We'll be right back.
All right, Channel 9 Eyewitness News meteorologist Tom Terry with the latest there. We, of course, will continue to monitor the storm throughout the night tonight. If you have any questions or concerns, you wake up in the middle of the night, you hear a loud bang, you hear a loud noise or something along those lines, all you have to do is turn your radios right here to WDBO, and you'll be able to hear the latest information about Hurricane Idalia and any threats that it may pose to Orlando. Now, Paul Cross, we've been keeping a very close eye on the drive and the roadways, and of course, it's not terribly at this moment, unlike some of our just afternoons, storms that we see. This is pretty kind of common for us, especially this time of year.
Yeah, we are seeing more volume, though, because of the fact that traffic is moving at a little bit of a slower pace than it normally does. And so what that's doing is just bunching everybody up through certain areas. And then, of course, when you have crashes and you have things like that, it makes it even worse. But looking at the maps, it's getting a lot better right now, Joe. It was a mess earlier. It's getting a lot better now on I-4 going through Celebration and also by the Disney exits as well.
Do you get a sense on I-4 coming out of Tampa if people are evacuating that part of the state and coming a little further inland? I know that Governor DeSantis has said it multiple times that you don't have to evacuate hundreds of miles. Oftentimes you can evacuate tens of miles, and that is going to be sufficient for most people just to get to higher ground. But are you seeing an increase in traffic there on I-4 coming out of Tampa?
Well, earlier, if you asked me that an hour ago, there was a lot of red on the screens with a lot of brake lights. Right now, it doesn't look that bad. I think people just kind of said, look, let's get this over with and get out on the roads now and then not get out later. Because looking at the eastbound traffic here coming out of Lakeland and into the Orlando area, it doesn't look that bad.
All right, and WDBO reporter Nicole Diaz is joining us now. And Nicole, I know you're keeping an eye on power outages, and thankfully we don't have a whole lot just yet.
Not seeing much just yet. I'm seeing about 2,000, almost 3,000 right now in Citrus County, which is right below that Big Bend area. So that's the area where it's expected to see, and we're probably going to start seeing those numbers go up more. And then the only other area I'm seeing is about 500 in Wakulla County. So also, again, at the edges of that Big Bend, probably getting like the kind of that whip around from the hurricane starting to approach, but not much yet.
And, as Tom Terry said, it was going to be, up near Tallahassee. What was the last storm that we had, Paul Cross? Do you remember I want to say it was one of the ice storms. I don't know if it was Ian or one of the other storms. Maybe it was Irma, but one of those storms. Oh, you know what? I think it was Michael, actually, now that I think about it. But one of those storms hit the Tallahassee area. And, man, Tallahassee is not built for heavy amounts of rain. They had significant flooding problems.
But neither is the Bend, and the Bend is going to be in horrific shape. When you go to Cedar Key and Sewanee and around in that area, that's going to be completely underwater. I just as an experiment, because when Governor DeSantis was talking, we were talking about 10 to 15 foot swells, or at least
the storm surge.
Sorry.
Yep.
I just got a tape measure out, and I went, let's see how high my ceiling's pretty high in the house, 12 feet high in the house. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh. When you look at the swampland out there in that elbow right there at the Bend, that is going to be catastrophic for those people. They haven't had something hit them in that area
ever
since the 1800s.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to go by as far as, remember this? Let's make plans to do this. No, this is their initial number 3 hurricane hit. So this is going to be tough.
It is indeed. All right, I'm Joe Kelley. We got our whole crew here with you tonight here, the special edition of the Joe Kelley Show as Category 2 Hurricane Idalia makes its way towards the Big Bend area of Florida. It's expected to make landfall in the early morning, in the 8 a.m. or so hour tomorrow morning. Make sure you've got your radios on Orlando's Morning News with Scott and Ez. They're going to start early tomorrow at 4 a.m., and I believe they're going to run through 10 a.m. tomorrow, so we'll have complete coverage for you first thing in the morning when you wake up as well. We'll continue our live coverage coming up straight ahead. Stay with us.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. This is a special edition of WDBO Tracking Idalia.
My name is Joe Kelley. It's the Joe Kelley Show, but a special edition here is Idalia is moving towards the Big Bend right now, which is where the Panhandle meets the peninsula. The P meets the P, if you will. And we were talking in the chat group on the WDBO Facebook page with Laurel and Paul Cross just in the last couple of minutes that the storm surge could be upwards of 15 feet as it makes its way up into the Big Bend. And somebody in the comment section, and I went, David says, due respect, before a storm can push its hand into the ocean, first it has to take away from the ocean. And you're absolutely right about that, David Russell. And do you guys remember, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, honestly, all of my hurricane seasons blur together after a while, and all the storms, seem the same after a while. But do you remember, again, it was either last year or the year before, do you remember when Tampa Bay drained out? whatever hurricane that was going past.
That was eerie. People were walking in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Walking and picking up shells and things like that, and you're thinking, where did the water go? But
right.
That was before the surge, and so that's what happens. So, even when you see the tsunamis and things like that, all of a sudden the whole ocean will go way out, and you'll get to see land way out where you never get to see it. And they go, oh man, that's pretty cool, and then wha-bam.
Yep. It's not going to be a thing for us, obviously, inland here in the Orlando area, but man, for our friends out in the Tampa Bay area, I don't know if it's going to happen today, if Tampa Bay is going to draw out. I just saw a few minutes ago one of the reporters out there at Tampa Bay, and it did look like it was pretty full. The bay was. But it is entirely likely, it's certainly possible, that part or all of Tampa Bay is going to drain out again as that hurricane makes its way by. We're going to check in, we hope, with the National Hurricane Center. That's going to be coming up next. Stay with us.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. This is a special edition of WDBO Tracking Idalia.
My name is Joe Kelley. We got our whole team here with you tonight. A programming note for you here. So we can stay with you all night, or we could wrap up at 7 o'clock. To be honest with you, this storm is pretty far out into the Gulf. It's about 120 miles to the west of Naples right now. It is not going to have a major impact here in Central Florida. So we will be wrapping this up at 7 o'clock. We're going to get back to our regular programming at 7 o'clock, but we're going to stay staffed up throughout the night. We're going to have someone here and plugged in throughout the night. If anything changes, just switch your radios on to WDBO. If you suddenly feel panicked, if you suddenly think, oh my goodness, what was that noise I just heard outside, then switch your radios here to WDBO, and we will keep you updated throughout the night.
Hi, I just have a question if you can ask or if you can verify.
Sure.
Being the storm so unpredictable, is the governor going to say and advise people from Central Florida to North Florida to stay home and the employers to leave their employees home? Right now, even though I'm in Osceola, I work in Lake Mary, and they want us to drive on the rain in the morning. So I just want to know if there's something.
Yeah, I can tell you that the governor is not going to be giving an order that is going to tell you to stay home and that you can't go to work tomorrow. There are certain businesses that will be closed tomorrow. For that matter, our business announced that we're going to be closed tomorrow to everybody but essential employees. That's always a tough call, isn't it? When you get that call and says it's only essential employees need to show up. Suddenly everybody shows up because nobody wants to be counted as non-essential employees, because why the hell do you work here if you're not an essential employee? So that'll be a decision that everybody's going to have to make on their own. Of course, most of our schools, our local schools, are going to be closed tomorrow. So if moms and dads have to go to work and the kids don't go to school, you might be in need of childcare or something along those lines. But check with your employers because you're not going to get an order from Governor DeSantis tonight telling you to stay home.
Joe!
Yes!
Now that you have finally got the name Idalia, can you please tell Governor DeSantis that it's not Idalia, it is Idalia? Thank you, Joe.
You know, the challenge here is it's the I storm. So I know that it's pronounced Idalia, but it's the I storm. So I think people want to call it Idalia, like the Vidalia onions, Idalia. But yeah, it is Idalia.
Hey, Joe, out here in the Deltona area, northeast section, we are starting to get downpouring rain and some pretty good winds with gusts and a lot of lightning. Just giving you a weather update here in the northeast side of Deltona.
Outstanding. We got our junior amateur meteorologist checking in, letting us know. We appreciate that very much.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
I just want to say, I know what you guys are up against. You guys are at WDBO are up all night making sure that we stay up to date on everything hurricane. And I just got to tell you that there's I feel a strong sense of comfort when I hear your voice on the radio, yours particularly. But thank you so much to the whole team at WDBO.
Oh, gosh, that means more to me than a paycheck. That means everything to me. Thank you so much for taking a moment to express those thoughts and to share that with us. That means the absolute world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, as I pointed out with our programming for the rest of the night, the status of this storm does not necessitate that we stay on continuously throughout the night. At this point, if that changes, we will certainly change our plan. But at the moment, at 7 o'clock, we're going to go back to our regular programming. We will be interrupting our regular programming as needed throughout the night. We will be staffed up throughout the night to make sure that we bring you any essential information. But we feel quite blessed, quite lucky. That this storm is not going to be a direct hit on the Orlando area. Some of the early spaghetti models indicated that it could be a direct hit in the Orlando area. Fortunately, those early spaghetti models were wrong. And the plurality, if not majority, of the spaghetti models that said it was going to go to the Big Bend up there where the Panhandle meets the peninsula, those spaghetti models were the accurate ones, and that does appear to be where the storm is heading at this hour. It has a pretty well-defined eye already out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. It is a broad storm. I mean, it stretches hundreds of miles across this storm with a sizable eye. And, we'll see if the eye wall collapses on itself and reforms, which is a pretty normal thing for hurricanes to do. But we're looking at tomorrow morning. Roughly 8 a.m. or so tomorrow morning is the anticipated landfall of Category 2 Hurricane Idalia is expected to make landfall tomorrow morning at about 8 a.m. up in the Big Bend area of the state of Florida. So make sure, as I said, overnight tonight, make sure you're checking in here on WDBO. If you hear a big noise, if you get scared, if you get concerned, you wake up in the middle of the night, tune in. If you're hearing regular programming, that means that everything is going to be safe for you. If you're hearing us and Tom Terry, that means that things have escalated, that things have changed. Either way, we'll be here with you throughout the night just in case something does get crossways as far as the weather is concerned. Otherwise, as I said, we'll return back to our regular programming coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. And as we're watching the storm, and we've got this one big band, this final band that's going to make its way across here. Frankly, it's making its way across right now. As we're seeing this big band that is making its way, the outer band of Hurricane Idalia. There's going to be another band that is currently down in the Miami area, and Miami's dealing with their king tides right now, and that's going to be a heavy storm down there. It'll make its way across Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee, Lake Pontchartrain is in Louisiana. So that's Lake Okeechobee, and that the storm is going to make its way across the lake and then up here towards central Florida. So in the next 4 hours or so, you're likely to have some other thunder. You're going to be able to hear some thunder. You're going to see some lightning through the blinds in your house. But that is about all we're going to be dealing with. Paul Cross, I know that you're also keeping a very close eye on the traffic as it relates to this storm, and honestly, we're looking at I-4 right now near the convention center. And while I
believe it's pronounced E4, by the way, instead of I-4. I'll have to check the books on that.
Yes, if you could, please. And while the traffic is certainly backed up, it's not raining. I mean, it's cloudy, but it's not raining.
We are seeing some rain north of the Sanford area. When you get into Volusia, you'd still see little spots of rain here and there, but at the same time, it's going to be gone within the next hour or so, and it's going to go away until tomorrow morning. So the roadways should stay dry for the rest of the evening, which means it's going to help with the speed and get you home in time for dinner, hopefully.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about going out and exploring, if you're thinking about going out and looking for doom and gloom, and you want to go out and see evidence of a storm, first of all, this is really not. Well, first of all, don't. Second of all, this is really not that kind of a storm, at least not for Central Florida. It certainly will be for Tallahassee, for parts of Gainesville, for the Big Bend area. This will be that kind of storm. But it's not going to be for us. I mean, if you want to get out and go on a macabre sightseeing tour of destruction and damage, you're going to be driving a hell of a long way. Florida is a very long state, and to get up to the Big Bend area is hours away from here. So you ought to just stay home and get some rest tonight.
And Jim Cantori is in Cedar Key, which is going to be unbelievably hit. Just remember Cedar Key for when you wake up tomorrow or in the midday and find out where is Cedar Key. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and as goes Jim Cantor, so goes the hurricanes. As everybody well knows, we've all seen the memes on our Facebook feeds today, on our Instagram feeds today, on TikTok and elsewhere, that Jim Cantor is the harbinger of bad things coming. So wherever they put him is where it's going to be particularly bad. And fortunately, he's not here in the Orlando area, and we're very, very happy about that. Not that we don't like Jim, but we just don't want him here because that's a bad omen. Yeah. All right, so thank you guys so very much for being a part of the show tonight. Thanks to our chat group on our Facebook page, to Laurel and Greg and Paul and everybody who's been a part of the show. And as I said, we're gonna return back to our regular programming now, but we're not abandoning you. We're not leaving you. We will continue to be here throughout the night. And if something happens, if something triggers, if something gets crossways, if we suddenly have severe storms, if we suddenly have damage, if we suddenly have a tornado, we're going to be right here back with you throughout the night tonight. So stay with us here on WDBO.